Why did no one look her in the eye that morning? Engines grumbled across the motor pool, spitting exhaust into the chilly air. Soldiers hurried between armored carriers, the sharp rhythm of boots clashing against concrete. Yet in the middle of that living machinery of war, Corporal Elena Brooks stood quiet, hands steady, expression unreadable, as if she heard a different rhythm than everyone else, something slower, heavier. She pulled a wrench from beneath the hull of a tank and wiped grease from her knuckles. Others talked, laughed, bragged. She listened, always listened, because silence had saved her once out there in the place she never mentioned. But no one here cared. She was just a mechanic to them, a quiet one too, easy to forget. Maybe that was why no one greeted her, why every voice seemed to skip past her, why the new recruits walked around her like she carried a shadow. She didn't mind, not anymore. What she minded was how easily people believed the surface. Oil stains, torn gloves, quiet posture, and mistook all of it for weakness. But there were things she hadn't told them. Not yet. A toolbox clanged shut behind her. Private Kelm, barely 20, tried to balance authority on his narrow shoulders. Sergeant Major says inspection at 0900, he barked with a voice that tried too hard. Line 'em up, tools down. Elena nodded, aye. Kelm smirked too, pleased that someone listened without argument. He didn't notice how her gaze drifted past him, toward the horizon. She watched dust trail in the distance, a convoy approaching. One vehicle led the way, gleaming beneath the sun, flying a small flag on its antenna. General Halden, someone muttered, hell here. Conversations died, soldiers straightened, even the wind seemed to tense. Elena exhaled once quietly. She slipped her gloves into her back pocket and stood beside the others. Nobody spoke to her. Nobody asked if she was ready. They never did. She just blended into the line, the invisible one, the one who held machines together while others held rifles. The convoy roared into the lot. Doors slammed. Out stepped General Marcus Halden, jaw like granite, boots polished until they reflected the sky. His chest glittered with medals, his posture sharp enough to cut glass. He didn't walk, he carved a path. Every soldier stiffened. Elena kept her eyes forward. Halden paced down the line, his gaze faulting everything. Crooked patches, dusty helmets, nervous hands. He fed on imperfection, used humiliation as a weapon sharper than any blade. Then he stopped, right in front of Elena. He looked her up and down. Grease across her sleeves, hair loosely tied, dirt beneath her nails. He clicked his tongue. Is this what discipline looks like now? His voice sliced through the morning. A mechanic who can't even stay clean for inspection. Laughter rippled through the line, small, fearful. Elena didn't blink. With respect, sir, she said softly, this mechanic keeps your tanks alive when the shooting starts. Snickers froze, several heads snapped toward her. No one talked back to Halden, no one. The general stepped closer until his shadow swallowed hers. Watch your tone, Corporal, he hissed. I've seen real combat, not oil stains. More laughter, though at least one soldier's expression faltered. Private Kelm's. He'd heard rumors, whispers about her, things never said too loudly. Halden waited for her to break, to apologize, to shrink. She didn't. Inside her chest, her heartbeat stayed even, focused. Somewhere deep, an old ache stirred, memories buried under layers of steel and silence. She just held his stare. Then Captain Ruiz hurried over, clipboard trembling in his hands. Sir, diagnostics are complete. All vehicles ready for deployment, thanks to Corporal Brooks. Halden scoffed. Operational from her, he shook his head. She's never seen anything past these walls. Ruiz hesitated. His eyes flicked toward Elena's chest. He lowered his voice. Sir, you might want to look at her plate. Halden frowned, annoyed. He grabbed her uniform, ready to scold her over something, a loose thread, a missing pin, anything. Then he froze. Pinned above her heart, was a medal that didn't belong on a random mechanic. It didn't belong anywhere except on legends. The Medal of Honor. The sunlight caught its edge, throwing sparks across the concrete. Every soldier around them went dead silent. Even the engine seemed to stop breathing. Halden's face drained of color. That's impossible. Elena answered calmly. It wasn't for fixing engines, sir. Her voice wavered just barely, not from fear. From memory. It was for holding off an ambush in Kandahar. Our convoy was hit. Ammunition cooked off. I pulled 6 men out of a burning vehicle before it exploded. Silence. Captain Ruiz swallowed. She was the only survivor. Medal was presented by the president. Halden stared at her. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The yard felt smaller, tighter, like the air had thickened. You, Halden finally whispered. You were with the 312th. Elena nodded. Yes, sir. He drew a shaky breath. My brother, Lieutenant Halden, was. His voice fractured. In that convoy. Elena's expression softened just slightly. I pulled him out. He didn't make it, but I got him home. The general's posture buckled, not visibly, but enough that the weight became real. A few of the soldiers who mocked her moments before now stared at their boots. Shame crawled up their necks. Halden exhaled slow. You got him home. A statement, a realization. He stepped back, and for the first time his salute was slow, respectful. You have my deepest respect. His voice cracked. She didn't move. She only nodded, because medals didn't matter to her. Not the medal, not the shine. They were heavy for a reason. That moment should have changed everything. But it didn't. Respect earned in silence was often lost once the noise returned. Days passed. The story spread across base, retold, exaggerated, questioned. Some soldiers treated her differently. Others avoided her. Most just watched from a distance, unsure how to speak to someone who'd walked through fire and returned alone. Some whispered she was dangerous. Others said she was broken. A few insisted she was lying, that it was just paperwork politics. She ignored all of it. Because there were things she hadn't told them. Not yet. One evening she sat alone behind the motor pool, smoking a quiet cigarette. Her hands were still stained with oil from the Abrams she'd tuned for hours. She liked the work. Machines didn't judge, didn't lie. They just responded to care. Across the yard, a group of soldiers approached, voices low, mocking. Kelm was with them. He didn't speak, but he didn't leave either. Hey, hero, one called. Got any war stories? Or did you just accidentally fall into that metal? Elena kept her eyes on the cigarette, watched the ember crawl downward. Another soldier snickered. I heard she hid while her team burned. Kelm flinched. Cut it out, he muttered. They ignored him. You think that metal makes you special. A boot scraped the gravel. We've seen your type, cowards with shiny chests. Elena stood. Slowly. She didn't raise her voice, didn't reach for a weapon, didn't glare. She just looked at them, one by one. And something about her gaze, steady, unblinking, too calm, stopped their laughter. The ringleader's smirk faded. His breath paused. You can believe what you want, she said quietly, but I didn't earn this for surviving. Her eyes darkened. I earned it for losing everyone else. Silence swallowed the yard. Even the mocking soldier's face shifted, uncertainty replacing arrogance. She flicked her cigarette into the dust. And trust me, she added, there's nothing honorable about that. She walked away. Kelm watched her go, brows tightened, something like guilt twisting inside him. He turned and shoved the ringleader's shoulder. You're an idiot, he snapped. She saved people. What have you done? The soldier scoffed, but his voice cracked. I didn't. Kelm didn't stay to listen. Inside the barracks, Elena lay on her bunk, lights off, eyes open. Sleep came slow these days, always had. Every time she closed her eyes, Kandahar rose like smoke, filling her mind. The road, the screams, the heat, the flames. The sound of ammunition cooking off like metal screaming. She remembered dragging bodies through the fire. Skin melting, breath burning, heart bursting, and somewhere inside that chaos, a hand slipping from hers. Lieutenant Halden. His brother had her gratitude but not her forgiveness. She hadn't earned forgiveness for that day. She only carried the weight. Because surviving meant remembering every single detail. She turned onto her side, staring at the metal pin to her jacket across the room, patient, waiting, like it wanted to remind her who she was supposed to be. But she knew better. The metal wasn't a badge. It was a sentence. A knock sounded at the door, soft, hesitant. Elena. Captain Ruiz. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. Yeah. He entered quietly, closing the door behind him. He held a folder, classified, thick. You said you're ready to get back out there, he murmured. She stiffened. I said I'd consider it. He held her gaze. This is bigger than maintenance. They need someone who's seen fire, someone who knows how to disappear, someone who doesn't panic when everything goes wrong. Her chest tightened. There's a mission, he continued. Quiet, no fanfare, but dangerous. Of course it was. The general approved you personally, Ruiz added. He said his brother trusted you. That's enough for him. She swallowed hard. What's the target? Ruiz set the folder on the table. Not a what, a who. He hesitated. He was in Kandahar, the day your convoy was hit. Elena's blood ran cold. What are you saying? He survived. The room felt suddenly small, the air thin. Ruiz's voice softened, but he didn't come home, he was taken. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. A man they'd assumed dead. Alive. Out there. Somewhere. She reached for the folder but stopped. Her hands trembled. She curled them into fists. Ruiz watched her. Concern, respect, uncertainty, all mixed behind his eyes. You don't have to open it tonight, he said. But if you do, things will never be the same. He stepped back. Get some rest. Decision's yours. He left. The door clicked shut. Elena stared at the untouched folder. If she opened it, she'd go back. Back to the fire. Back to the ghosts. Her fingers hovered over the cover. Shaking. Cold. She closed her eyes and whispered, barely audible. I never left. Her hand dropped. The folder remained closed. For now. But she knew. The past wasn't done with her. Not even close. Because there were things she hadn't told them. Not yet. Why did she open the folder? For nearly an hour it sat untouched on the small metal table, edges glowing faintly beneath the single overhead bulb. Elena lay motionless on her bunk, staring at it like it might bite, or burn, or whisper. Maybe it already was. The bass outside had quieted, the evening marching toward silence. Distant boots still thudded occasionally, trucks rolled now and then, muffled conversations drifted through thin walls, but the world around her had shrunk until everything outside that folder felt irrelevant. It wasn't just a mission file. It was a doorway back into a fire she swore she'd escaped. She sat up, feeling the heaviness settle in her chest, that familiar tightness that came whenever the past sniffed her out. She stood slowly, crossing the room. Her fingers brushed the folder's edge. She hesitated. The room seemed to wait. She opened it, and the world tilted. A face stared back at her, weathered, bruised, older than she remembered, but unmistakable. Sergeant Daniel Harker. The last man she tried to pull from the burning transport before the second explosion threw her across the road. The man who'd screamed for her to let go because the fire had already taken everything. The man she swore was dead. He was alive. Her throat tightened. Beneath his photo, a single line glared up at her. Status: confirmed POW location. Unknown last signal from Northern Corridor, 3 km outside Mazar. She flipped the page. Reports, maps, grainy satellite photos, a fractured transmission transcript. The voice, faint, choked, sounded like someone fighting through dust, blood, and terror. Alive, if anyone, don't leave me. Her fingers stopped. At the bottom, a signature she knew too well. Halden. General Marcus Halden. Her jaw clenched. So that was why he saluted her. He didn't just respect her. He needed her. A sour taste filled her mouth. She spent 2 years trying to bury Kandahar beneath grease and silence, and now Halden wanted to drag her back, because saving his brother hadn't been enough. Now she had to save the ghost from her nightmares. She closed the folder, hard. Her hands shook. She pressed them against her knees, steadying her breath. Why now, she whispered. Because no one else could find him, that much was obvious. They needed someone who had been there, someone who had survived when everyone else fell, someone who still heard the screams. A knock broke her thoughts. Not hesitant this time. Firm, purposeful. She didn't answer. She already knew who it was. The door opened anyway. Halden stood framed in the dim light of the hallway, silhouette sharp, eyes darker than before. He entered silently and closed the door behind him. No rank, no arrogance, just a man with something already broken inside him. Elena didn't stand, she didn't salute, she just stared at him. So he said quietly, "You saw." "Why didn't you tell them he lived?" she asked. He swallowed, "Because I wasn't sure, not at first." His voice frayed at the edges, "and because hope is dangerous." Her eyes hardened. "You could have told me. You wouldn't have believed me." She looked away because he was right. Halden pulled a chair closer and sat. He looked older now than he had earlier. The lines across his forehead felt deeper, cut by years of guilt and grief. "You were the last one who saw him," Halden said. "Alive." Elena closed her eyes. The heat, the screaming, the metal collapsing, Harker's hand tearing from hers. She saw it all again. "I tried," she whispered. "I tried to pull him out." "I know," Halden replied. "You got my brother home. I never thanked you properly." She tensed. "That medal," he continued, voice trembling, "has been sitting on my desk for 2 years. I used to stare at it when I couldn't sleep, thinking about him, thinking about you." He paused, "thinking about why you lived when he didn't." Her gaze snapped toward him, sharp, wounded. He froze, shame flooding his face. "That came out wrong," he muttered. She clenched her hands into fists. "You think I don't ask myself that every damn night?" He didn't speak. Silence stretched, thick, suffocating. Finally she exhaled, slow, controlled. "What do you want from me?" Halden looked at her, desperation bleeding through his stern facade. "Bring him home." She stared at him. "The military has teams," she said. "Special groups, intel operators, why me?" His answer was immediate. "Because he trusted you, he wouldn't fight you." Her breath caught. Because part of her remembered his voice, raspy, sand-choked, telling her to run, telling her to leave him, telling her he was already gone. "Elena," Halden whispered, "you already carried him once. You're the only one who might carry him again." Her chest tightened. She looked at the folder, at his photo, eyes wild, full of something she recognized. Fear. Pain. Memory. "He's not the same," Halden warned. "We don't know what they've done to him." The room chilled. "Not the same. Broken. Like her." He stood, straightened his uniform. Decision's yours, but if you say no, they'll send others, and they won't look at him and see a soldier worth saving. He turned to leave. Think carefully. He stepped through the doorway. Paused. He saved 2 of my men before that convoy went up. He didn't have to. He didn't owe them anything. Halden's voice cracked. He was a good man. Then he left. The door clicked shut. Elena sat there, frozen, the weight of the past sinking sharp teeth into her ribs. She saw Harker's face again, heard his voice. Run! Her nails dug into her palms. She stood abruptly, grabbed her jacket, then stopped. Her reflection stared back at her from a small mirror bolted above her sink. Her eyes, once quiet, now churned with something fierce, something angry. She hated this. How memories stole sleep, how guilt built walls around her heart, how one moment Kandahar had carved her into someone she didn't recognize. She closed her eyes. I can't go back. She opened them. But he's alive. Her breath trembled over her lips. Alive. Someone who'd been left behind. Someone who didn't deserve it. She couldn't stop seeing the faces of the others, the 5 men she carried out. Their weight, their blood, the way they whispered her name, asking why. Why them? Why not the rest? Why him? Her vision blurred. She turned back to the table. Sat. Opened the folder again. There were coordinates, supply routes, patrol cycles, a rough map drawn by someone who must have seen the place, a cave system north of a small village. The signature beneath the map wasn't military, civilian, maybe local intel, maybe someone paid to help. Or betray. The report was brief, too brief. Which meant there wasn't much time. One more document lay at the bottom, sealed in a transparent sleeve. A letter. Unsent. Written in shaky handwriting. If anyone reads this, tell them I tried. No name signed. But the next page didn't need one. Harker's face, that same bruised expression. Elena curled her hand around the paper, thumb pressed tight. She whispered his name. Not because she needed to remember, but because she needed not to forget. The room felt different now, heavier, yet somehow clearer. Her decision wasn't made, not fully, but the path had begun shaping beneath her feet. Someone tapped at her door again. Gentle this time. Elena. Ruiz. Come in, she said quietly. He stepped inside, eyes scanning her face. Something in her expression must have changed because his shoulders loosened slightly. You read it. She nodded. He didn't ask what she decided. He didn't need to. Instead, he placed a small envelope on the table. Orders, if you go, you leave tomorrow, pre-dawn. She lifted it. The paper felt like weight more than instructions. Ruiz paused, his voice softer. This won't be easy for you. She gave a humorless laugh. Nothing worth doing ever is. He hesitated, just long enough to show he cared. If you need someone watching your 6, he offered quietly, you know where to find me. She looked at him. Really looked. He wasn't like Halden, hardened by pride and rank. Ruiz was steady, present, a quiet soldier who understood pain without running from it. She nodded, thank you. He gave a small, sorrowful smile. Don't thank me yet. He left. She set the envelope beside the folder. Her hands trembled again, not from fear. From memory. She stood and walked outside. The night was cold, a sharp wind brushing across her skin. The motor pool was silent now, tanks asleep under the moonlight like beasts waiting for morning. She lit another cigarette. Smoke curled skyward. She closed her eyes, and the desert returned. The heat. The screams. The fire swallowing the convoy. Harker's voice. Don't come back for me. She inhaled. Exhaled. She whispered into the wind. I'm coming back anyway. She didn't know if it was madness or mercy driving her, redemption or self-destruction, maybe both. But she knew this. Some ghosts didn't stay buried. Some debts didn't disappear. And some people you didn't leave behind. Not twice. The cigarette burned low, the ember flicking out in the breeze. She watched until it disappeared. Her breath steadied. Her heartbeat slowed. Inside her chest, something long dormant stirred, not hope, but purpose. Quiet, heavy, unforgiving. She turned toward her barracks. Tomorrow would come too soon. But tonight, she sat on the edge of her bunk again, staring at the folder. She wasn't ready. No one ever was. But she would go. Not because of Halden, not because of guilt, but because somewhere in the desert, Harker was still calling her name. And there was something she hadn't told anyone. Not yet. The last thing he whispered before the flames swallowed him wasn't run. It was something else. Something she'd buried under ash and silence. She remembered it now. Find me. Her chest tightened. A soft, broken breath escaped her lips. Tomorrow she would. Even if it meant losing herself again. Because sometimes, dignity didn't speak. It simply acted. What did it cost her to leave? The alarm never rang. She was awake before dawn, sitting at the edge of her bunk, elbows on her knees, staring into darkness. The room felt hollow, stripped of warmth, stripped of anything that could hold her here. Her duffel lay open on the floor, only half-packed. Spare fatigues, worn gloves, a broken watch that still ticked, a metal patch from her old unit. She hadn't meant to pack it. Her hands had done it on their own, guided by memory instead of logic. She rose, dressed, moved quietly so the others in the barracks wouldn't wake. Not that they'd stop her, not that they'd care. Some of them still didn't believe the stories. Some didn't want to believe. The idea that the quiet mechanic had carried dying men through fire made them uncomfortable. The idea that she might be leaving again, that she might face what they never had to, made them afraid. She shouldered her pack. When she stepped outside, the world was cold. A blue-gray dawn hovered just below the horizon, painting everything in the quiet that comes before meaning. Nothing stirred except the wind, brushing against the metal carcasses of sleeping vehicles. Ghosts of diesel fumes whispered around her, familiar and strange all at once. She exhaled, watching her breath turn to frost. One step, then another. She headed toward the airfield. But halfway there, a shadow blocked her path, leaving without saying goodbye. Kelm. Private, thin, eyes red with exhaustion. He must have been waiting. She didn't know how long. He swallowed hard. I heard rumors. Elena's face didn't change. Rumors spread fast. Faster when they're scary. She could have walked past him. He wasn't here to stop her. He was here because he didn't know how to stand in silence. Young soldiers feared emptiness. They needed noise to remind them they were alive. What they said yesterday, he murmured, staring at the dirt. About you, it wasn't right. She didn't answer. He looked up. His jaw tightened. If you're going out there, I just wanted to say, he hesitated, searching for words big enough to carry everything he didn't know how to say. Come back. Her chest ached, a small, unexpected ache. She nodded once. Take care of the machines. He blinked. You too. Then, without ceremony, she walked past him. He didn't follow. Some people belong to the beginning of a story, not the middle, not the end. Kelm was a beginning, too new for scars, too soft for fire. She hoped he stayed that way. The hangar wasn't loud, but it wasn't silent either. Pilots checked clipboards, engineers tuned humming engines, supply officers cursed into radios. But all of it felt distant, like hearing water through glass. Captain Ruiz stood near a small transport helicopter, matte gray, unmarked. His hands were tucked into his jacket. He'd been waiting. When he saw her, he didn't smile, just exhaled, long and quiet. "You're early. I didn't sleep. Didn't think you would." His understatement made something flicker behind her ribs. Familiarity. Not comfort. Nothing about this felt comforting, but shared language. Ruiz was the kind of man who never asked for details, only facts. She nodded toward the aircraft. "This my ride." "Part of it," he said. "We drop you near the first checkpoint. After that, you're on your own." She had expected as much. He handed her a sealed pouch. "Communication codes, extraction points, contingencies, destroy it if you're compromised." She slipped it into her jacket. Ruiz hesitated. "You're sure?" "No." She wasn't sure, but she nodded anyway. He didn't question further. The blades above them began to spin, the air shaking slightly. She reached for the door, then Ruiz lowered his voice. "This isn't just about Harker, is it?" She paused. Her fingers tightened on the metal handle. No answer came. He nodded, not because he understood, but because he didn't need to. "As soon as you're airborne, you're off the record," he said. "No official support, no backup unless you ask." She stepped into the helicopter. Ruiz followed her to the doorway, his voice barely audible over the rising roar. "Just remember, you're not alone." She didn't look back, because she felt like she was. The desert below spread endlessly, ridges, dunes, wounds carved by time. The memory of Kandahar clung to her senses, blurring past and present until the only difference was temperature. She hadn't wanted to see sand again. It had taken too much. Fire, blood, whole people. And now it wanted more. The pilot didn't speak. It was better that way. Words would have only scratched the surface of what weighed on her. She stared down through the scratched window. Every flicker of rock became a burning truck. Every distant road became a memory. Every shadow became a ghost she had buried but never mourned. She closed her eyes. But the screams followed. They always did. They landed near a dried riverbed. The helicopter never fully settled, hovering just enough to avoid leaving tracks. Elena jumped, landing hard enough to feel the shock travel through her bones. The pilot shouted over the blades, "3-day walk to your first contact." She lifted a hand in acknowledgement. Just before the helicopter rose, the pilot called again. "Good luck." She didn't answer. The helicopter faded into the sky, shrinking into nothingness. Silence returned. A deep, ancient silence, the kind that swallowed voices. She pulled up her scarf, adjusting it against the wind, and began walking. The desert greeted her like an old enemy, familiar, patient, unforgiving. Sand crunched beneath her boots. She moved without hesitation, tracing her route from memory, not maps, not instructions. Memory. Because she had been here before. Because this ground still remembered her blood. By dusk, the wind had grown sharp. Somewhere far off, a storm swirled, stirring sand into the sky like rising smoke. She found shelter beneath a cliff overhang, stone eroded into natural teeth. She drank from her canteen sparingly, ate dried rations without tasting them. Her body moved on routine, the way it had years ago, a life she never thought she'd return to. As the sun bled into night, she listened. Desert silence wasn't empty. It held secrets. The wind carried whispers, shuffling footsteps, or memory. She leaned back, closing her eyes. And Kandahar came rushing. The convoy had moved slow that day. Too slow. Sun beating down, dust choking every breath. She rode in the middle vehicle, not commanding, not protected, just there to keep engines alive. Something felt wrong, though. She remembered glancing at Harker, him tapping the side of the transport, eyes narrowed, body tense. "You hear that?" he'd asked. She hadn't. She wished she had. The explosion tore the sky open. The first vehicle vanished in fire. The second hers flipped. Heat punched her lungs. She crawled, screamed, dragged bodies. Metal melted beneath her hands, ammunition cooking off. Harker shouting for her to leave him. She didn't. She tried to pull him anyway. His hand slipped. And then, a blast. White. Then nothing. She gasped awake, heart pounding. Night had fallen completely. Wind moaned like wounded men. She wiped sweat from her forehead, breath ragged. She needed rest. But sleep refused her. She waited until the nightmares faded, until the echoes of fire quieted, and then rose. She brushed sand from her jacket and continued walking beneath starlight. 1 foot. Then the next. Every step felt like stepping deeper into the past, toward answers she feared. By morning, she reached a small village tucked against the mountains. Mud brick homes, faded awnings, smoke curling from crude stoves. She kept her hood low, face half-shadowed. Children played near the outskirts, but when they saw her, a stranger, they fell still, eyes wide. A man approached, tall, thin, weathered. He carried a cane, though he didn't lean on it. "You walk like soldier," he said in halting English. "I walk like traveler." He smiled faintly. Same thing, different words. She studied him. His eyes were too calm, too knowing. "You selling tea?" she asked. He nodded toward a low building. "For those who drink." Inside, warmth welcomed her, dim, worn, honest. He poured steaming liquid into a chipped cup. The scent wasn't familiar, harsher, bitter, but she drank anyway. He watched her carefully. "You come looking," he said. "Everyone's looking for something." He chuckled, "Only those who lose." Her jaw tightened. He leaned closer. You knew man, face broken, eyes grieving. Her blood ran cold. "Harker." "He passed here," the man murmured. "Months ago. Looked like someone swallowed by the mountain, but the mountain spat him out again." Her hands trembled around the cup. "Where?" The man's eyes dimmed. He did not stay. "Where did he go?" He hesitated. Something in the walls seemed to hold breath. Finally, "North, where no one returns." Fear flickered in her chest. Not for herself. For Harker. "Tell me," she demanded. A long pause. Then old fortress. Abandoned, some say soldiers, some say ghosts. No one knows truth. Her pulse quickened. "Which direction?" He pointed, a ridge line barely visible through dusty window glass. 3 days, he said quietly, "if sand allows you." She stood. He caught her wrist. "Girl," he whispered, voice grave, "things broken beyond repair do not always want fixing." Her breath shuddered. "Is he alive?" The man lowered his gaze. "Alive?" He paused. "Yes." "A beat." "Whole." He shook his head. "No." Her chest constricted, sharp, painful. She left coins on the table, though he hadn't asked for payment, and stepped outside. The village seemed to close behind her, watching silently. She walked toward the ridge. She didn't look back. Because turning around meant abandoning the reason she'd come, the reason she breathed through nightmares. As she disappeared into the wilds, the old man whispered into the wind. "She follows ghosts to become one." The mountains grew sharper. Stone replaced sand. The air thinned. Her legs burned, but she didn't slow. Rest came only when her body threatened to collapse, and even then she slept lightly, hunted by memory. On the second night, something stirred her awake. Not dreams. Footsteps. Soft, careful. Her hand moved toward the knife at her hip, silent, practiced. She stepped behind a boulder, breath controlled. Figures moved through the dark. 3, 4, maybe more. Too quiet to be travelers, too deliberate to be hunters. Their voices were faint, in a language she barely recognized, clipped, urgent. They were searching. For her. She stayed still. One approached close enough to see the faint glint of a worn AK-style rifle slung low. He paused, turned. Listening. The wind held its breath. Elena's pulse slowed, an echo of training she never wanted but never forgot. Her fingers tightened on the knife. The soldier stepped closer. Closer. Sand shifted beneath his boot. His head snapped toward the sound, toward her. Silence hung by a thread. Then, a hand seized him from behind, clamping over his mouth, dragging him backward. He struggled, muffled screams fading as both bodies vanished into the dark. No sound followed. No sign. Just stillness. Elena froze. A whisper cut through the night, low, rough, impossible. Elena. Her blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. Broken, scarred, yet unmistakably his. Harker. Somewhere in the shadows. Watching. Still alive. Her breath trembled. But before she could speak, before she could run toward the voice, a single sentence drifted across the darkness. Don't follow. Her knees nearly buckled. She stepped forward anyway. The mountains swallowed her. And somewhere unseen, someone, maybe Harker, maybe someone else, watched. Waiting. She tightened her grip on the knife. She kept walking. Because she hadn't come here to obey fear. She had come to find him. Even if it meant losing herself again. What was he running from, and why did she still follow? The mountains swallowed the world, layer by jagged layer. Shadows clung to the rock like stubborn memories, refusing to let go. Elena moved through them with measured steps, knife in hand, breath controlled. Part of her knew she should have retreated, regrouped, made contact with command, but this mission wasn't about command. It was about a promise, buried under fire and ash. The voice she'd heard in the dark, unmistakably Harker's, still echoed inside her skull. Raw, torn. Not a man begging for rescue, but a warning edged with desperation. A warning meant to keep her away. She wasn't listening. The trail climbed sharply. Wind howled across the ridge, scraping her cheeks with sand. She pressed forward, fingers brushing stone for balance. Every sound felt amplified, every loose pebble, every shifting gust. Don't follow. She climbed faster. Hours blurred. Dawn began bruising the horizon, pale blue bleeding through the night. Once, she stopped to catch her breath, leaning against a cold slab of rock. Her heart hammered hard enough to shake her ribs. She wasn't tired. She was afraid. Not of the mountains, not of the soldiers she'd seen, but of what waited ahead. The Harker she remembered had been steady, solid, the kind of man who could crack a joke in a firefight just to steady a trembling rookie. She could still hear him. It's just noise, Brooks, keep breathing. Noise can't kill you. But last night, his voice wasn't steady. It was fractured. If he was alive, something had twisted him. She pushed off the rock and continued upward. The sun finally rose, burning away the deeper shadows. But light didn't make the mountain safer, only clearer. And what she saw ahead made her pause. Drags. Boot prints pressed into the dust. Recent, deep, heavy, more than one set. They led toward a narrow canyon where stone walls rose on both sides, a throat of rock only wide enough for one person at a time. She crouched, fingers grazing the prints. The edges were sharp, less than a day old. Someone had passed through quickly, not caring to hide their trail, but another set overlapped, lighter, irregular, almost stumbling. Harker. A chill crawled through her. Behind the prints, further back, she noticed drag marks, as if something had been pulled, or someone. She stood, knife still in hand. No. Not someone, not Harker. He'd spoken to her, whispered like a ghost. He was moving under his own power. So who had been dragged? The canyon waited, silent, unwelcoming. She slid her knife back into its sheath and pulled her sidearm instead, keeping it low. One deep breath. Then she stepped inside. The canyon walls squeezed inward, the passage barely wide enough for her shoulders. Shadows moved strangely here, stretching, bending, almost breathing. The silence felt wrong too, heavy, watching. Every few meters, she stopped to listen. Nothing. No birds, no wind. Just her own heartbeat. Toward the end of the canyon, she spotted blood-small droplets darkening the pale rock. She knelt, touching one with her gloved finger. Still tacky. Fresh. Her pulse quickened. She followed the trail until the canyon opened into a small, hidden basin, a natural bowl of rock sheltered from the wind. Jagged cliffs rose on all sides, offering no easy exit. And there at the center lay a body. Her breath halted. She approached slowly, gun raised. The figure was face down, hands bound, shirt torn. Blood soaked the ground beneath him. When she rolled him over, her chest tightened. A young soldier. American. Barely older than Kelm. His face bruised, lips split, eyes half open but vacant. He died afraid, alone. His dog tags hung twisted beneath his collar. RMRZJ. She swallowed hard. Why was he here? Was he part of a rescue team, special ops, someone they'd sent before her? No, there had been no mention in the file, nothing about others. So who sent him? A message was carved into his forearm. Crude, bloody. Run. Her jaw clenched. So someone was still trying to warn her. Or threaten her. She closed his eyes gently and whispered something he'd never hear. I'm sorry you were alone. She forced herself back up. The blood trail continued, leading away from the basin and up toward another rocky pass. Beyond it, she saw movement, a glint of metal vanishing behind stone. She drew a slow breath and followed. The trail wound upward, exposed, vulnerable. If someone wanted to shoot her, they'd have no better opportunity than here. Her palms sweated against her weapon. The sun was higher now, turning the rock into heat-charged blades. Halfway up, she spotted fresh tracks again, this time mixed with something else. Boot prints. And bare feet. Deep dragging. As if someone was being pulled or stumbling. One set was larger, heavy, familiar. Harker. She felt her stomach tighten. Staying alive out here without boots meant desperation or madness. She followed the trail until the mountain opened into a high plateau. A ruined fortress lay ahead, stone walls broken by time, towers crumbled, gates hanging cracked and rusted. But there were signs of life, tracks, discarded wrappers, cold ashes from campfires. Someone had been using this skeleton of war as shelter. Or prison. She approached slowly, scanning windows, doorways, shadows. The place felt wrong, too quiet, too still, as if it had been expecting her. Halfway across the courtyard, her gaze caught movement, barely a flicker, in one of the darkened doorways. She raised her gun. Silence. Then a soft scrape. Metal against stone. Instinct screamed. She dove behind a shattered pillar as a bullet sliced past, striking where she'd stood. Then another. Then three. Dust exploded around her, stinging her eyes. She pressed her back against the stone, breathing hard. There was no time to think. Only act. She counted footsteps, light, rapid. Only one shooter, good. Manageable. She peered around the pillar. A shadow flickered in a window. She fired twice, controlled, precise, then moved before bullets answered back. Silence. The shooter had repositioned. She sprinted low, zigzagging toward a fallen wall. More shots cracked past. One clipped her shoulder, a hot line across her skin, but she kept moving. Behind cover, she inhaled through clenched teeth. Blood warmed her collar. It hurt, but she could still fight. A whisper drifted through the courtyard. Don't follow. Her breath froze. Harker. His voice was closer now, not imagined, not memory. Real. She scanned the fortress, tension coiling in her muscles. Whoever had fired at her wasn't shooting now. They were waiting. A door creaked. She pivoted toward the sound, gun raised. A man emerged, slow, staggering. Hair long, tangled, skin bruised, face gaunt. Bare feet cut and bleeding across the stone. His clothes torn, hands shaking. Harker. But not the man she remembered. This version looked hollow, a body held together by stubbornness alone. His eyes flitted around the courtyard like he expected demons in every corner. Elena, he rasped, voice shredded, raw, you shouldn't be here. Her throat closed. She lowered her weapon. Harker, I. No. He lurched forward, grabbing her arm with surprising force. You have to leave, now. She stared at him, at the panic etched into his bones. What happened to you? His gaze darted around again. They'll kill you. They already know you're here. Who? He shook his head, frantic. You don't understand. They did things. They made me. A bullet smashed into the stone beside them, showering them both in dust. Harker yanked her down behind cover. She heard boots, multiple, pounding against stone. Not one shooter. More. She grabbed Harker's face, forcing him to look at her. Can you run? His breath hitched. I can try. She nodded, helping him up. He leaned heavily against her, trembling. Together, they moved toward the inner corridor, a narrow stone passage leading deeper underground. Gunfire exploded behind them. Voices shouted, foreign, chaotic. Harker stumbled, pain twisting his face. Elena pulled him harder, faster. They ducked into the corridor just as bullets tore through the arch. Darkness swallowed them. The air turned cold, stale. Elena kept her gun forward, one hand gripping Harker's wrist. Down here, he whispered. How do you know? His breath shook. I've been trying to escape for months. Her stomach twisted. They descended crude steps carved into stone, humid, narrow. Water dripped somewhere, echoing. The tunnel walls glowed faintly with mold, and the smell of rust coated her tongue. Harker's pace slowed. His legs shook violently. Rest a second, she murmured. No, he gasped, pushing forward. If we stop, they'll catch us. They reached a chamber, larger, round, lit faintly by a single broken lantern. Old crates and rotted gear were strewn about, remnants of a forgotten war. Harker stumbled to the wall. His breath came in desperate pulls. Elena scanned the tunnel behind them. No movement yet. What did they do to you? She whispered. He didn't answer. He just stared at his hands, trembling uncontrollably, like they weren't his. Elena. He raised his eyes. She froze. There was fear there, but also something worse. Shame. They tried to make me forget, he whispered. Everything, my name, my unit, my life. Her throat tightened. Did they hurt you? He gave a broken laugh. That isn't the worst thing. She stepped closer. Then what? They tried to make me remember things that never happened. The words sank into her like ice. Brainwashing. Reprogramming. She'd heard rumors, nothing confirmed, nothing official, stories that sounded like nightmares dressed in uniforms. They wanted me to believe I killed my men. Elena's breath faltered. But we were ambushed, she said. It wasn't. I know, he whispered, but they made me see it, over and over, until I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Her hand curled into a fist. He looked up slowly, and now I don't know which memories are mine. Footsteps echoed down the tunnel. Voices. Close. Harker's panic burst. We have to go. He pushed off the wall, nearly falling, and staggered toward another passage. Elena followed, gripping his arm tight, guiding him through twisting tunnels that grew darker and narrower. Their breaths echoed, Their footsteps quickened. Behind them, the voices grew clearer, sharper, hunting. They turned a corner and stopped. The tunnel ended. A dead end. Harker cursed beneath his breath, sinking to his knees. Elena scanned the wall, stone, no seams, no way forward. She aimed her gun down the tunnel. "Harker," she whispered, "you need to tell me everything." He shook his head violently. "There isn't time." "There is now," she hissed. He looked up, eyes wild. "You're not here to rescue me." The words froze her. She lowered her gun a fraction. "What? You think Halden sent you to bring me home?" He let out a broken laugh. "He sent you because they told him I'm a threat." Her stomach dropped. "No," she whispered, He thinks I turned," Harker said, "that I went rogue, that I betrayed my unit." "That's not true, Elena." He looked directly at her, steady, for the first time. "He thinks I killed his brother." Her blood turned cold. "No," she breathed, "he knows I." "He doesn't know anything," Harker whispered, "because I didn't tell him." For a heartbeat, just one, the world stopped. Gunfire cracked down the tunnel, stones shattered, shadows flickered. Elena raised her weapon, adrenaline ripping the air. Men clothed in dark uniforms, masked faces, weapons raised, trained, efficient. She fired 1, 2, 3, each bullet finding flesh, dropping bodies. Harker crawled behind a crate, trembling. But more came. Too many. Elena grabbed Harker, pulling him against the wall as bullets tore past. She returned fire, controlled bursts, slowing them, not stopping them. "Harker," she shouted, "is there another way out?" He clutched his head, shaking. "There was, I can't remember." Anger flared. Not at him. At everything that had been done to him. "Elena," he gasped, "if they take me again, don't let them." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. She grabbed his face, voice low and firm. "I'm not leaving you." He smiled, small, broken. "You already did once." Her chest fractured. The men advanced. Elena fired until her magazine clicked empty. She drew her knife, pulse booming in her ears. A blast shook the chamber. Dust filled the air. Rock crumbled. The ceiling groaned. A detonation not hers had triggered a collapse somewhere nearby. The tunnel behind the attackers fell in on itself, burying the soldiers in stone and dust. Silence. Elena held her breath. Then footsteps. Fast light. Coming from the opposite direction. She raised her knife. A figure stepped into the lantern light. Not a soldier. Not an enemy. Captain Ruiz. His rifle lowered as soon as he saw her. "Looks like you could use help." Elena exhaled shakily. "How did you?" "You left early," he said. "I figured you'd need someone watching your six." He glanced at Harker, bruised, broken. "We need to move," he said, "before more come." But Elena wasn't looking at Ruiz. She was staring at Harker. Because his eyes weren't on her anymore. They were fixed behind her. In terror. "Elena," he whispered. She turned. A man stood at the tunnel entrance. Tall, calm. Unarmed. But his presence was colder than any weapon. He smiled. "I've been waiting for you." Elena stepped forward, weapon raised again. "Who are you?" His smile widened, too gentle, too practiced. "Someone who wants the same thing you do." Her voice dropped. "And what's that?" He tilted his head, eyes glinting with strange familiarity. "To bring him home." Harker flinched. Ruiz raised his weapon. Elena's pulse shuddered. The stranger took a slow step closer. "He trusts you, Elena," he said softly, "but he shouldn't." Her chest tightened. "Why not?" The man's gaze darkened. "Because you don't know what really happened in Kandahar." Harker choked on a breath. And Elena, for the first time since she stepped into the desert, felt truly afraid. Because there were things she hadn't told anyone. Not even herself. Why did her memory suddenly feel like someone else's story? Elena's grip tightened around the knife, her heartbeat shuddering through her chest. The stranger stood just inside the reach of the darkness, that unsettling smile still resting on his face, not mocking, not threatening, but knowing, as if he already understood the shape of her thoughts before she did. Ruiz kept his rifle trained on him. Harker pressed himself against the wall, trembling. "Elena," the stranger said softly, "I'm not your enemy." "Funny," she whispered. "That's exactly what someone would say when they are." He chuckled, not amused, just tired. "Maybe, but I'm not here to fight you." Ruiz's finger hovered over the trigger. "Then don't move." The man raised his hand slightly, palms open. "I won't." His voice was too calm to trust, but too familiar to ignore. Elena's breath shook. "Start talking," she demanded. The stranger nodded, taking a careful step forward, slow, measured. "You came to find Sergeant Daniel Harker, to save him." His voice softened, "But he doesn't need saving." Harker flinched, like the words hit a place already bleeding. Elena angled her body slightly, shielding Harker. "He's bleeding, barefoot, half-starved. That looked like someone who doesn't need help." The stranger's gaze drifted over Harker, not pitying, more like assessing. "He's alive because of us," he said. Ruiz scoffed. "By the looks of it, he survived in spite of you." The stranger's smile faded. "He's alive because we needed him to be." The wording twisted something inside Elena. "We," she pressed. A nod. "There are people not from your command who understand what happened in Kandahar. People who saw the truth, even when your leaders chose not to." Elena felt her jaw clench. "The truth is in my report," she snapped. "We were ambushed, we." "That's the version you remember." Her blood turned cold. "What are you implying?" Ruiz demanded. "That memory," the stranger said quietly, "isn't the whole story." Elena felt the ground tilt beneath her. A deep, nauseating shift. She took a step closer, voice low and dangerous. "I remember what happened." The stranger looked at her with something close to sorrow. "No, you remember what you were given." Harker's breath hitched sharply. Ruiz's rifle steadied. "Talk or I drop you." The man nodded, unafraid. "Elena," he said, "did anyone ever explain why your convoy took that route? Why your unit, a maintenance detail, was anywhere near active combat?" She stiffened. "No. Because someone wanted you there," he said. "All of you." Elena felt her chest tighten, a panic she hadn't felt even under fire. "What are you saying?" "That ambush wasn't an accident. It was arranged." He paused. "Your unit was sacrificed." She felt her lungs freeze. "No," she whispered. "Our intel got it wrong. It happens." The stranger shook his head. "You weren't meant to survive. None of you." Her breath faltered. Harker closed his eyes, as if he had heard these words before. Ruiz fired a warning shot into the ceiling. "Enough, you either give me proof or—" The stranger didn't flinch. "Elena," he murmured, "why did your radio fail that day?" Elena's mouth went dry. "Because it did. It died moments before the ambush. No interference, no warning. Just silence." "Why," he continued, "did the convoy behind yours turn around just minutes before? Why did the drone Overwatch suddenly get reassigned?" Her vision blurred. "How did he know that?" "How," she whispered, "do you know all this?" His eyes softened. "Because I was there." Elena felt a tremor slip through her. "You were what?" The stranger nodded slowly. I was sent to retrieve someone from your convoy. Only one person. The rest. A breath. Expendable. Elena's skin ran cold. Who, she asked, who were you supposed to retrieve? His gaze drifted past her. To Harker. Elena's heart stopped. Harker stared back, horror widening his eyes. No, he whispered. No, that's not. You were the target, the stranger said gently. You were always the target. Harker shook his head violently, fingers digging into his skull. Stop, stop, stop. Elena dropped beside him, gripping his shoulders. Harker, look at me. But he couldn't. He was spiraling, memories scraping raw inside him. Ruiz stepped closer, still aiming at the stranger. What did they do to him? The stranger's jaw tightened. They broke him, he said quietly. Then they tried to put him back together. Elena felt bile rise in her throat. Why him? She demanded. Because, the stranger said, he knew something he shouldn't, something that could shatter people much higher than Halden. Elena grabbed the stranger's collar, slamming him against the wall so hard dust fell from the ceiling. Tell me what he knew. The stranger didn't resist. He knew who signed the order. Elena's grip slipped. Signed what order? To send your unit to die. Her throat closed. No. 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 She shook her head slowly. That makes no sense. There's no reason. There was, he said. He wasn't supposed to make it back, but when he did, they had to take him. She felt the world collapsing, the walls, the tunnel, the ground beneath her feet. Harker whispered, voice trembling, terrified. I tried to tell him, tried to tell Halden, but they already knew, they already knew. Elena stared at him. You told Halden. Harker nodded, barely, eyes hollow. Her mind raced. Halden knew. Halden knew his brother hadn't died in an accident. That the convoy was sent to die. But he said nothing. Let her believe the lie. Let her drown in the nightmare for 2 years. Why? The stranger's voice cut through her thoughts. Because Halden wasn't protecting the truth about his brother. He leaned closer. He was protecting the truth about you. Elena froze. Me, she whispered. The stranger nodded. Daniel wasn't supposed to survive. He paused. But you weren't supposed to either. Her breath punched from her lungs. A cold, slow dread slid through her spine. No, she whispered. That's wrong, I wasn't. You were the second target. She stepped back, shaking her head hard, as if the movement could knock the truth loose, send it scattering into the dust. Why, she demanded, why me? The stranger looked at her, really looked at her, with a sadness that frightened her more than any weapon could. Because you were there before the convoy. Her pulse faltered. What are you talking about? His words landed like a blade. You were part of this long before Kandahar. She stared. Empty. Silent. Because somewhere deep, there was a memory she had never touched. A doorway sealed shut behind scars and smoke. Ruiz's voice cut in, sharp, grounding her. Elena, don't listen to him. We need to move. No, the stranger said. She needs to hear this before it's too late. He pointed at Harker. He tried to tell you, but they erased it, piece by piece. Elena shook her head. This is insane. I would remember. The stranger's eyes darkened. You do, but memory is buried beneath pain. He took a slow breath. Before Kandahar, you and Harker were part of a covert intelligence program. Deep work, off books. They sent you into places no one admitted existed. You learned things, dangerous things. Elena's heart hammered. I was just a mechanic, she whispered. No, he said softly. You only thought you were. Her vision trembled. Stop, she breathed. You were trained, he continued. You and Harker both, not as soldiers, not as mechanics. He stepped closer. As weapons. Everything inside her recoiled. She felt her legs weaken, her breath fragment, the ground tilt. Her hands shot to the wall to steady herself. No, she rasped. No, I would know, I would. Memory is a fragile currency, he said. Yours was altered. Ruiz barked enough. He took a step forward. You're coming with us. The stranger didn't move. Elena, he said, voice low, urgent. They're coming. And if they reach us before you remember who you are, none of us will make it out. From deeper in the tunnels, the sound of boots echoed, many boots approaching fast. Harker's breath quickened. They're here, they're here. Ruiz raised his rifle again, backing toward the exit. We need to go, now. Elena didn't move. Her mind spun, caught between her past and a future she didn't understand. Mechanic, soldier, survivor, or something else entirely. The stranger watched her, waiting. Elena, he whispered, you asked why you survived Kandahar. Her gaze lifted, hollow. Yes. He nodded. You survived because you weren't meant to die. The tunnel shook with the thunder of approaching footsteps. Harker trembled against the wall. Ruiz reached for her arm. Elena. But she couldn't move. She didn't know where to go. Who to trust. What to believe. The stranger's voice cut through the noise, one final thread pulling her forward. Everything you are afraid to remember is exactly what you need to know. The tunnel roared. As the enemy closed in, Elena closed her eyes. And somewhere inside her, beneath ash, beneath silence, a memory stirred. One she didn't recognize. A woman's voice. Her own. Saying 3 quiet words. Finish the mission. What was buried in her mind, and why was it waking now? Elena didn't feel the tunnel beneath her feet anymore. Didn't hear Ruiz shouting her name. Didn't notice the walls trembling as enemy boots pounded closer. All she heard was that voice. Her own. Cold, focused. Unfamiliar. Finish the mission. A tremor ran through her, not fear. Recognition. A memory she'd never met. Her fingers slipped from the wall, hanging in the cold air. Ruiz seized her wrist, yanking her back to the present. Elena, we're moving now. She blinked, reality crashing back. Dust fell from the ceiling. Gunfire cracked somewhere deeper in the labyrinth. Voices shouted in a language she didn't know. Harker clutched the wall, barely standing. The stranger simply watched her, eyes patient, urgent. Elena, he said again, there isn't much time. She pointed her pistol at him, reflex more than choice. You talk, she rasped, or you walk out of here in pieces. Ruiz shot her a look, startled, sharp, but didn't argue. He just kept his rifle trained on the tunnel behind them. The stranger lifted his hand slowly. You were part of a covert program long before the convoy. They recruited you without record, without trace. They trained people whose skills made them disappear in plain sight. Elena shook her head, breath trembling. I fix engines. You were taught to forget, he said. Her heart lurched. No. Yes. His voice softened. You volunteered, but after what happened, you chose to forget everything. The words lodged in her chest, too large to swallow. Volunteered for what? His eyes darkened. To expose men who betray their own. She stared. Stunned. Lost. The stranger gave her a moment, one heartbeat, then continued. Kandahar wasn't a random ambush. Your team was gathering evidence against high-ranking officers who were selling intel to foreign networks. They knew. They set the ambush. sent your convoy into the kill zone. Harker survived because you shielded him. You were protecting the memory card, the proof. Her pulse hammered. She remembered heat, fire, screaming, but something else, buried beneath it, flickered. Her hands holding something small. Metal, burning hot. She shook her head. No, I was dragging men out of a fire. You were trying to keep the evidence from being taken, he corrected. Harker had it on him. They wanted him alive so they could retrieve it. When you pulled him from the transport, the card fell. He nodded slightly at her chest. You have it still. Elena froze. Her fingers instinctively brushed against the inside pocket of her jacket, where she kept a small, charred piece of metal she'd found fused into her gear after the explosion. She'd never known what it was, never showed anyone. Something about it felt too personal, too heavy. She always carried it, but never asked why. Her breath broke. You're lying. I'm not. He took one slow step forward. The memory card you carry contains everything: names, dates, locations, payments. Enough to destroy men who built empires out of betrayal. They couldn't kill you until they knew whether you still had it or if you remembered. How? Her voice cracked. How do you know I have it? He dropped his hands. Because we were part of the same program. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Prove it. He hesitated, then raised his hand to his own chest. Slowly, he unfastened the top of his shirt, revealing a scar, jagged, white, the shape of a small diamond near his collarbone. Elena's stomach dropped. She had the same scar, just beneath her metal. Her pulse roared in her ears. No, she whispered. No, that's not. You recognize it, he said. Your body does, even if your mind doesn't. Ruiz looked between them, confusion mixing with alarm. Elena, what's he talking about? She couldn't answer. Her throat felt locked shut, like her own mind was strangling her. The stranger continued, voice steady. You were one of the best, not because you were strongest, but because you were the most loyal. You believed in the mission more than any of us. He paused. That's why you volunteered to have the memories suppressed, for your safety, for Harker's safety. Elena stared at him, a storm flickering behind her eyes. I would never choose to forget them, she whispered. You did, he said softly. You begged us to take it all because the pain was killing you. A tremor cracked through her ribs. The tunnel filled with faint gunmetal clinks, magazines being loaded, footsteps closing in. Ruiz looked back. We need to move. Harker whimpered in fear, curling inward like a wounded animal. He was shaking violently, triggered, unraveling. Elena moved toward him, lowering herself to eye level. Harker, she whispered, look at me. His eyes flicked up wide, glassy. You knew, she breathed. You knew before I did. He nodded. Barely. They tried to make me forget, he whispered. But I remembered you, I remembered. His voice cracked. Your promise. A flash sharp slammed through her skull. A memory. Dark room. Her hand gripping Harker. Her voice calm, fierce, saying, if one of us falls, the other carries the truth. She gasped, clutching her head. The world flickered. The tunnel blurred. Light fractured. Her breath came shallow, erratic. Ruiz grabbed her shoulder. Elena, stay with me. But the memories wouldn't wait. Her hands against sand. Gunfire. Harker dragging her behind cover. A small drive pressed into her palm. If I don't make it, you finish the mission. Then, the world exploding into flame. She staggered, catching herself on the wall. Her vision steadied. Her pulse slowed. And suddenly, she remembered the heat. Not just the heat of fire, but the heat of truth. They were hunting them long before the convoy burned. Ruiz stared at her, realization dawning in his eyes. Elena, what did you just remember? She swallowed hard. We weren't repairing vehicles that day. Her voice steadied cold. We were transferring evidence. The stranger nodded. You're waking up. Bootsteps thundered closer, echoing faster, the enemy drawing near. We need to go. If they capture Harker again, they'll finish what they started. Ruiz stepped beside Elena, weapon ready. You two explain everything to me after we get out, he said, assuming we do. The stranger turned toward a narrow cut in the rock. This way, there's a secondary tunnel, old, partially collapsed, but it leads out. Ruiz frowned. Why help us? He looked at Elena. Because I owe her. Elena's eyes narrowed. For what? He gave a small, broken smile. You saved my life once, you just don't remember. Before she could respond, gunfire ripped through the tunnel behind them. Stone shattered. Voices barked orders. They're here, Ruiz shouted. Harker screamed, covering his ears. The stranger pointed toward the narrow passage. Go. Ruiz grabbed Harker. Elena covered them, firing down the tunnel, controlled, unshaking. Her bullets found bodies. Her body moved with a terrifying familiarity. Not learned in training bays, or classrooms, or workshops. Learned elsewhere. Somewhere without walls. She was faster than she should have been. Calmer than she should have been. Ruiz glanced at her, realization creeping across his face. Mechanic my ass, he muttered. They stumbled into the secondary passage, a tight squeeze forcing them single file. Stones scraped her arms, dust choked the air, ahead faint daylight flickered. Gunfire pounded behind them, bullets sparked off stone. The tunnel shook. Harker tripped. Elena caught him, slinging his arm over her shoulders. I've got you, she hissed. He nodded, whimpering. Behind them, the stranger fired back, precise, quiet. Elena, he called, left turn ahead, go. She pushed forward. Ruiz in front, Harker leaning into her. The stranger guarding their backs. They reached the turn. Stone giving way to a sloping path. Light. Finally. But as Ruiz emerged first, he froze. Elena's heart slammed. Two silhouettes stood outside the exit. Armed, waiting. Ruiz raised his rifle. Too late. Gunfire exploded. Ruiz stumbled backward, collapsing into Elena, blood dripping from his shoulder. She caught him, shoving Harker against the wall, and dragged Ruiz deeper inside. Outside, a voice called. Elena Broks. Cold, commanding. Almost familiar. She raised her weapon, teeth clenched. The stranger pressed against her back, gun ready. Harker trembled violently, sliding down the wall. Ruiz gritted his teeth, blood soaking his sleeve. I'm fine, I'm fine. Another shout outside. We don't want to kill you. Elena's breath narrowed. They always said that. Then the voice added, louder. We just want what you carry. Her blood turned to ice. They knew. They knew about the memory card. Elena stepped forward. Eyes cold, voice steady. You want it. Silence answered. Then, we want the truth. Her grip tightened. Somewhere behind her, the stranger whispered. Careful, that's the most dangerous thing you can give them. Ruiz pressed a hand to his bleeding shoulder. Who are they? Elena didn't answer. Because the truth wasn't outside. It was inside her. Surging. Breaking free. Flooding back. Memories she'd never lived, yet always carried, rose inside her like a tide. Faces in dim rooms. Maps spread across floors. Night missions without names. Shadows wearing her voice. A needle. A promise. A hand gripping hers. If you choose to forget, you can never come back. Her own voice. She whispered into the dark. I came back anyway. The tunnel fell silent. Outside, the enemy waited. Inside, her past awakened. And for the first time since Kandahar, Elena felt something stronger than fear. Purpose. The mission was never over. It was only buried. Now, it was time to finish it. Why did the ones outside sound like they already knew her? The voice echoed through the ruined tunnel, bouncing off stone and memory together. Elena let the silence stretch, reading it, tone steady, confident, not afraid of her. That meant they knew enough to fear what she carried, but not enough to understand her. That was a mistake. Her fingers brushed the spot beneath her collarbone, where the faint diamond-shaped scar lay hidden beneath fabric, a scar she once thought came from shrapnel. Now she wasn't so sure. Ruiz's breath came hurried and shallow beside her. Blood soaked the sleeve of his fatigues, dripping onto the dirt. He clamped both hands over the wound, teeth clenched. His eyes were bright, not from pain, but from adrenaline. How many? Elena whispered. Ruiz swallowed, 2 up front, maybe more behind them. Harker curled at the wall's base, knees drawn to his chest, whispering to himself, not words, just sounds. Small, frantic. His breathing echoed too loud. Elena knelt briefly, lifting his chin so his eyes met hers. Harker, she murmured, voice steady and warm in a way she hadn't heard from herself in years. Look at me. His gaze darted away. She held firm. You're here, okay? You're here with me. His eyes filled, trembling. Elena, I didn't want you to come back. She nodded once, I know. He swallowed, struggling through his own fear. If you go out there, they'll take it. They'll take everything again. Her pulse thudded deep. Only if I let them. The stranger remained at the tunnel's mouth behind them, calm, rifle held low, dark eyes listening for movement. Elena, he said quietly, they're holding position. They're not storming, they're waiting. For what? Ruiz grunted. The stranger's expression stiffened. For her. Elena thumbed the safety on her pistol, inhaled, exhaled. Slow, deliberate. She stood. Ruiz caught her sleeve. Brooks, what the hell are you doing? Answering. Ruiz shook his head hard. No, not like this, we need a plan. Standing still is the plan, the stranger murmured. They won't shoot until they know. Ruiz snapped, know what? The stranger's eyes slid toward Elena. Whether she remembers. Elena ignored them both, stepping forward, just enough that her silhouette brushed the fractured sunlight bleeding through the narrow cut of tunnel ahead. She raised her voice. You know my name, she called. Say yours. Silence. Then the voice again, closer now, less muffled. We don't use names. Elena lifted her chin. Then you know mine, good. Means I don't have to introduce myself when I start shooting. A faint laugh short, almost admiring. We're not here to kill you. Then you came to disappoint me. Ruiz blinked, surprised. There was steel in her she hadn't shown, not even back at the base. This was something older. Sharper. Unforgiving. Elena continued. Tell me what you want, with real words. The asset you stole. I didn't steal anything. No. The voice softened. You reclaimed what was yours. Her hand twitched. Not at the accusation, but at the familiarity in his tone. The stranger behind her whispered. They know too much. Ruiz gritted his teeth. Brooks, talk to me, what's going on? Elena didn't answer. Her gaze stayed locked forward into the valley of shadows outside. The voice returned, conversational now. We know what you were before Kandahar. Elena's pulse tightened. The stranger stiffened but said nothing. We know what happened 2 years ago wasn't an accident. It was an extraction gone wrong. Elena took a slow step closer. Extraction of who? A beat. You. Her blood iced. They weren't after Harker. Not originally. They wanted her. Memories swarmed at the edges of her mind, blurry, jagged, sudden. A dark room. A metal table. A voice saying, "You're too close." She blinked. The image vanished. The voice outside continued. "We have no interest in Sergeant Harker. He's compromised, broken, useless." Harker flinched, pressing his palms against his temples. "No, no, no." Elena's jaw clenched. Her voice sharpened. "You say another word about him, and we have a real problem." A quiet sigh. "You still think you're his protector." She took another step. "That was always the mission," she said. "No," the voice replied gently. "He was protecting you." Her breath stopped. A memory surfaced. Rain hammering canvas. Harker's voice, urgent, trembling. "You don't understand what they'll do to you." She staggered a half step. Ruiz steadied her. "You okay?" She was. Nothing was okay. But she nodded. Outside, the two figures waited. They stood too still. Too trained. Their muzzles were lowered, not hostile, just cautious. One raised his voice. "The memory card you carry isn't just evidence, it's a key." Elena's pulse jumped. "A key? To what?" she called. Silence. Then, to waking everything they buried in you. Her ribs tightened around her heart. Ruiz's eyes widened. "Elena, what the hell were you involved in?" She didn't answer. The stranger finally spoke, tone dark. "They're not here to take her back. They're here to finish her." Harker whimpered, rocking slightly. Ruiz cursed under his breath. "We can't fight them out there. We need another exit." "There isn't one," the stranger said. "The tunnels collapse inward beyond this point." Elena's eyes narrowed. "And you let us come here anyway." He didn't flinch. "I needed you to remember." Her hand trembled. Not with fear. With anger. "You could have said something. You wouldn't have listened." She stepped forward, fury cracking through her calm. "You risked all of us." The stranger's expression softened, unexpectedly gentle. "You risked yourself the day you lied about who you were." Her mouth went dry. "Lied?" He nodded. "You buried your memories, but you also buried your oath." Elena's chest tightened painfully. "That oath ended at Kandahar." "No," he whispered. "It started there." Boots scraped outside, impatient. One of the silhouettes shifted closer to the tunnel's opening. "Your time is up, Elena." She raised her weapon. The cold metal steadied her pulse. "I don't take orders from ghosts." Ruiz positioned himself behind rubble, rifle trained outside. "On your call." Elena inhaled, closing her eyes a moment. A memory stirred. Brief glowing. Harker laughing in the dust. Her hands covered in oil and sweat. His voice. "When it goes bad, Brooks, run toward me, not away." She opened her eyes. Harker was shaking, barely conscious, but his gaze met hers. Broken. Lost. But still there. Elena made her choice. She stepped just into the light, out of the tunnel but behind the fractured stone lip that curved toward open ground. Her silhouette visible, her face still shadowed. The figures outside tensed but didn't fire. One spoke again, calmer, coaxing. "We don't want this to end in blood." Elena lifted her chin. "Funny," she said, "that's exactly where it started." A beat. Then, You want the card? Tell me what it unlocks. The man hesitated, not because he didn't know, because he feared the answer. Ruiz whispered from behind, "What's happening?" The stranger answered quietly, "They don't want her to remember. They want her to forget permanently." Harker whimpered. The man outside exhaled. "It unlocks the rest of you." Her blood ran cold. The rest of me. Meaning the part she couldn't remember. The part she didn't know. The part that terrified her. She took another step into sunlight. Now they could see her fully. The two men flinched, not from surprise, but recognition. She saw it. In their eyes. Fear. The leader whispered, "It's really her." His partner nodded stiffly, hands shaking slightly. Elena's voice cut through them, sharp. "What did I do to you?" They hesitated. "Then, you killed us." Ruiz swore softly. Harker pressed his hands harder to his ears. The stranger closed his eyes, just once, as if bracing for impact. Elena didn't move. Didn't breathe. "You think I'd forget killing 2 men, she said. "You didn't kill 2, the leader replied. "You killed 14. Her heartbeat froze. The world lurched. Dark, fractured images slamming into the walls of her skull. Blurred figures. Muzzles flashing. Screams cut short. Her hands steady pulling a trigger. Again. Again. No hesitation. None. The memory vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only ice in her veins. The man continued. "You were ordered to eliminate us after we tried to expose them. You didn't know why. You didn't ask. You just obeyed." Elena stared, disbelieving, horrified. "I would never." "You did." His voice cracked. "You erased us, then they erased you." Elena staggered backward, pulse roaring so loud she couldn't hear Ruiz anymore, only fragments. 14 bodies. Her hands, her voice. Finish the mission. She felt the tunnel spin around her. Stone. Heat. Noise. The stranger caught her elbow before she fell. "Elena, look at me." She tried, but her vision kept stuttering. "You're remembering in pieces," he said softly. "That's normal." "Normal," she rasped. "How is any of this normal?" His voice dropped. "Because you asked us to do it." A beat. "You wanted to forget what you did to them, to survive the guilt." Her breath shattered. Outside, the leader lowered his weapon, not in surrender but reverence. "We came to take you home, not because you're innocent." A pause. "But because you belong with us." Elena's voice broke. "I don't belong to anyone." The stranger's grip on her tightened. "You belong to the truth." Bootsteps shifted. Sand hissed. The two men moved cautiously, stepping closer to the tunnel. Ruiz aimed higher. "Brooks, say the word." Harker's voice crawled up from his corner, small, broken. "Elena, please don't go back." She looked at him. His eyes were wide, pleading. A man who'd already been taken once, praying she wouldn't follow. The stranger watched her carefully. "You have to choose," he whispered. Ruiz struggled to stand, blood pooling under his palm. "Elena, listen to me, you're still you. Whoever you were before, whatever they made you do doesn't matter. You decide who you are now." For the first time, Elena felt pulled in every direction. Past, present, future. Then, the leader outside spoke again. "We're not here to hurt you. We're here because you're the only one who can stop what's coming." Elena blinked. "What's coming?" A long silence. Then, "The rest of your team." Her pulse stopped. "My team is dead." No, he answered. They're coming for you. The tunnel trembled. Not from memory. Not from fear. From something approaching. Something big. Many. Dozens. The stranger's voice turned grave. It started. Ruiz raised his weapon. Harker tried to stand and couldn't. Elena stared outside, into forming shapes on the ridge above. Black silhouettes, moving fast, uniform, silent. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Who are they? The leader didn't blink. The ones you trained with. Elena stepped back without meaning to. Her hand closed over the scar beneath her collar. The one she now understood wasn't shrapnel. It was a mark, a brand, a belonging. The leader spoke one last time, slow, like a sentence carrying the weight of her entire life. They're coming to bring you home. Elena's voice trembled when she answered. I'm not going anywhere with them. He nodded once. Then you'll have to survive them. The mountain air split with the sound of descending boots. The past was no longer memory. It had arrived. And Elena, for the first time, realized the mission she never remembered. Had never ended. Why did the mountain suddenly feel too small to hold the truth? Wind ripped through the broken fortress, scattering sand in sharp spirals. The silhouettes descending the ridge were nearly silent, too synchronized, too clean in their movement. They didn't shout. They didn't posture. They moved like memory. Ruiz tightened his stance, pressing a hand hard over his bleeding shoulder. His rifle shook, not from fear but from the weight of what was coming. Harker tried to stand, but his body failed him. He slid back to the ground, face pale, breath shallow. He kept whispering that same plea. Please don't go with them. Elena stepped forward, the narrow tunnel framing her like a boundary line she refused to cross. Her pulse hammered, her throat tightened, her fingers curled into her palms until they ached. This felt wrong. No, this felt familiar. The stranger beside her watched the ridge carefully, his voice low, steady. They won't shoot, not yet. They want you alive. Ruiz's jaw tightened. That's supposed to help. The stranger didn't answer. Elena stared at the figures' dark uniforms, unmarked, faces hidden behind visors that reflected the rising sun. Their descent was fast, precise, predatory. They didn't break formation. They didn't falter. A different life, a different version of her. Might have called them brothers. A chill moved through her chest. The leader who'd been speaking outside raised a hand. The descending silhouette stopped instantly, like a single body responding to a single mind. A memory flashed sharp, uninvited. A row of soldiers kneeling in sand, silent as wind. Her voice flat, unwavering, ordering them to rise. She knew that command. She felt it. Deep. Her breath cracked. Ruiz leaned close. Elena, what do you want to do? What did she want? Run. Hide. Shoot. Scream. None of those felt true. Because a terrifying part of her, somewhere beneath flesh and fear, recognized the rhythm of those boots. The posture, the angle of their weapons, the slight tilt of their helmets. She'd walked like that. A lifetime ago. She inhaled slow, steady. Stay behind me, she murmured. The stranger spoke quietly. You can't fight them all. She didn't look back. I'm not fighting them. She stepped out of the tunnel. Sunlight struck her face, warm, unkind. Dust glittered around her feet. Instantly, every weapon dropped a fraction, directed toward the ground. Not in surrender. In acknowledgement. Recognition. Her pulse stuttered. The leader, broad-shouldered, his visor cracked down the right side, stood a dozen meters away. He lifted both hands slowly, palms outward, no weapon drawn. "Elena Brooks," he said, voice steady, controlled. Like speaking to someone he'd known his entire life. "Elena Brooks is who I am now," she replied. She tried to sound sure. She was. He tilted his head, almost a nod. "You remember," he said. "Enough to know you shouldn't be here." He chuckled softly, sadly. "We're always where the mission needs us to be." The mission ended. "No," he said. It paused. Her breath trembled. "What do you want?" His visor angled forward, unreadable. "Your memory." Her fingers twitched toward her chest, toward the tiny charred fragment hidden beneath her vest. "You're not taking it." "You misunderstand," he said. "We don't want it." "A beat. We want you to use it." She stiffened. "You've been waking," he continued, "piece by piece." Elena felt her heartbeat grinding like stone. "I don't want those memories." He nodded once. "You didn't want them the first time, either." Her throat closed. "I chose to forget because it broke me." "You chose to forget," he corrected, "because you needed time, space, because you felt guilt for what you'd done, for the orders you carried." Elena's voice quivered. "I killed 14 of you." "No," he said. "You executed 14 traitors." Silence dropped like a hammer. Her stomach lurched. "Traitors?" "Yes, operatives who broke oath, who sold intel, who betrayed the mission. You carried out their sentence." Her breath stilled. "You think that absolves me?" "It wasn't personal," he said. "It was necessary." Elena shook her head. "That doesn't make it right." He raised his chin a fraction. "Right and necessary often disagree." She swallowed hard. The air burned her lungs. "And Harker," she asked, "was he necessary too?" A long pause. He looked at Harker behind her, shaking, small, broken, and exhaled. "He wasn't supposed to live." Her heart cracked. He didn't say it cruelly. Only as a fact. Ruiz stepped out beside her, rifle still up. "You're saying she executed 14 men because someone told her to." The leader didn't look at him. "She executed them because she knew why, because she understood the cost of disobedience." Elena's fingers curled. "She doesn't remember," Ruiz snapped. "That's not amnesia," the leader said. "That's design." He lifted his hand again, slow, gentle. "You were our best, Elena, not for your skill but for your conviction. You didn't ask if it was right. You asked if it was necessary." Elena's stomach twisted violently. "And now?" she asked, voice raw. "Now," he said, "we need you to finish what you started." She laughed, shaky, humorless. "What did I start?" The leader took one step forward. Carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. "The program you belonged to didn't end with you. The men who betrayed us are still out there. Powerful, hidden. They orchestrated Kandahar. They buried every trace." Her jaw clenched. "And Daniel." She nodded toward Harker. "He paid for their sin." The leader didn't deny it. "He remembers just enough to be dangerous, and not enough to be useful." Harker whimpered. Elena glanced back. His eyes were distant, swimming between worlds. She turned forward. "You want me to finish the mission by killing him?" The leader shook his head. "No, we want you to finish it by protecting him." Shot carved through her. He continued. "The card he carried, the one fused into your gear, holds proof. Names, evidence. You need it unlocked." Elena stiffened. "Unlocked? I don't know how." "You do," he said. "You just don't remember." She backed up a step. "No, I'm done being your weapon." His voice softened. "You were never our weapon. You were our conscience." Her breath caught. "You don't understand," she whispered. I don't trust myself. If I did those things, if I killed. You followed orders, he said. You upheld your oath. I don't want that oath. That doesn't change that you made it. A crack opened beneath her ribs, deep, aching. She wasn't this person. She couldn't be. She had to believe that. Ruiz stepped closer to her, close enough that his shoulder brushed hers. You don't have to be who you were, he murmured. You can choose who you are. The leader watched the two of them, eyes unreadable behind his visor. You brought him, he said quietly, gesturing at Ruiz. A good sign, it means you still trust. Elena felt something knot in her throat. How do I know you're not lying? He considered that. You don't. Then why should I trust you? Because we came here instead of sending a drone, he said. Because we didn't extract you by force. Because we're talking. Fair. Terrifyingly fair. And he added, because you already know we're telling the truth. Her breath faltered. The part of you that remembers, he said, has been trying to wake since Kandahar. He tilted his head. That's why you came. Her knees weakened. She steadied on sheer will. Behind her, Harker groaned, trying to stand. He failed. He reached toward her, fingers trembling. Elena. His voice cracked. Don't let them take you. She turned toward him, heart breaking. He stared up at her, eyes wild with fear. You told me, he whispered. You promised you'd never go back. You said the mission was over, you said. He choked, tears rising. You said you chose me. Her chest tightened painfully. The leader spoke again, quietly. He's the reason you asked to forget. Elena looked at him sharply. The leader nodded. You didn't volunteer to forget because of the bodies. You volunteered because of him, because he made you question the mission, and that scared you. Her breath trembled. The stranger finally stepped forward, closer into the light. His face was tired but steady. She protected him, he murmured, even when they told her not to. The leader nodded. She disobeyed only once, for him. A silence like gunpowder spread. And that, the leader said, is why they tried to erase them both. Harker pressed his palms over his face, shaking. Elena stared at him. This was never supposed to be about me, she whispered. It always was, the leader replied. Ruiz stepped between Elena and the descending soldiers, rifle braced. What if she says no? The leader spoke without hesitation. Then we leave, and so will the men coming behind us. Elena frowned. The men behind you aren't yours. The leader didn't speak. He didn't have to. From over the ridge, new silhouettes appeared. Taller, bulkier, moving with none of the precision her old unit had. Predators, not soldiers. The leader's visor turned slightly toward the road. They're coming for him, he said, nodding at Harker. Not for you, not for the car, just him. Elena's blood ran cold. Why him? She whispered. The leader paused. Then, because he remembers what they fear most. Elena crouched beside Harker, her hand on his cheek. What do you remember? She asked. His eyes fluttered, desperate. Your voice. She swallowed. What did I say? He shivered. You told me. He drew a ragged breath. That if the truth ever came for us. He looked straight into her. You'd burn every name before you let them win. Wind howled. Stone trembled. The leader raised his weapon, not at Elena. At the approaching new threat. We can help you escape, he said. But we need your answer. Ruiz's voice cracked through the moment. Elena, don't decide for them, decide for you. She stood slowly. The past pulled. The future pushed. and inside her, the present screamed. She looked at Harker. Broken. Afraid. Alive. She looked at Ruiz. Bleeding. Defiant. Faithful. She looked at the stranger. Silent. Knowing. Waiting. Then she looked at the leader. Still patient, unshaken. Tell me, she said softly, what finishing the mission means. He met her gaze. It means exposing them, all of them, using the card to burn their network to the ground. And after, then, he said, we disappear. Elena breathed once, then said, no. The leader didn't flinch. No, he echoed. She shook her head. I won't vanish. I won't forget again. I won't bury truth under silence. She reached behind her collar, pulled out the charred fragment she'd carried since Kandahar. A memory card. Scorched. Still alive. She held it up. I'm finishing the mission, she said. But on my terms. Ruiz exhaled. The stranger nodded. Harker closed his eyes, relief shaking him. The leader studied her. For the first time, he seemed uncertain. Elena, do you understand what that means? Yes. It means you'll make enemies you can't hide from. She stepped forward. I'm done hiding. A faint smile ghosted across his lips, pride, fear, sorrow tangled together. Then we stay, he said quietly. We stand with you. Behind him. His unit lowered their weapons. Ruiz lifted his, bracing at her flank. Harker crawled closer, clutching her leg like a child. The stranger chambered a fresh round. Elena stood. Steady. Centered. Awake. The new silhouettes crested the ridge. Dozens of them. Armed. Moving fast. The leader spoke. Just loud enough for her to hear. What now? Elena slid the memory card into her vest, raised her weapon, and answered. Now we make them remember. The ridge exploded in smoke and thunder as the enemies opened fire. The mountain shook. The past roared. And Elena, for the first time, did not run. She moved. With certainty. With purpose. With memory burning in her chest. Not because she was unafraid, but because she finally understood. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.